Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the grace of heaven, the virtues of the masters, and the compassion and mercy of the predecessors, transmitters, temple masters, lecturers, and others for giving me this opportunity to talk about today's topic, which is chapter 13 of the Tao Te Ching. Okay, so this is relatively pretty short. Okay, just as a preview, last week we talked about chapter 12, which is about the innate virtues. Okay, it focused, chapter 12 focused mainly on the external phenomena, external environment, and how human beings tend to deal with that. You know, how human beings tend to deal with that. And then he also, in chapter 12, he also Lao Tzu also mentioned at the end how a sage or a enlightened person would deal with it, as opposed, as a contrast against what ordinary humans would deal with the external phenomena. Okay, so and just as a reminder, right, the external phenomena he used, he divided up into three categories. Right, he talked about the colors blinding the eyes, the sounds that make one's ears deaf, and then also the flavors that makes one, that numb one's mouth. Okay, so those are the external phenomena. And now this chapter 13, this is talking more about the internal aspect. Okay, so last week, chapter 12, he was talking about the external phenomena and how it could influence us, right? Okay, then today, this week, chapter 13, the next chapter, Lao Tzu is talking about the emotional side or the internal side. Okay, so the title or the theme, the main theme of this chapter is called Favor and Disgrace, or Transformation to Tao. And in the conclusion, we'll see why that's also the case. Okay, or that's also a subject of this topic of this chapter. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so the first two phrases is like the intro, or he's putting down the premise. Okay, so it's favor and disgrace seem equally or make one fearful. So it's 宠辱落惊. Okay, all right. Okay, so the first word 宠. Okay, in the modern usage, it means usually to dote on, to love, pamper, spoil. Okay, so a lot of times they say pets. It's 宠物. It's an object or thing that we spoil over or we dote on. Okay, but in the ancient context, it means to favor, to be honored, to be praised, to bestow favor on, etc. It's more, it's more like that. Okay, all right. Then the second word, 辱, means disgrace, dishonor, humiliation, defamation, all that. It's basically a bad trait or quality. Bad. The first word is a positive quality. Right? It's good to be pampered. It's good to be favored, to be honored, to be praised, etc., etc. Whereas the second, is a negative quality because it's disgraceful, dishonor, humiliation, etc. Okay. So the third word, so these are like opposites, right? Duality. Okay. The third word, 落, means, it seems like, as if, similar to cause. Okay, then the last word, 惊, means alarm, fear, fright, shock. It could be a verb, it could be an adjective. Okay? All right. So the basic meaning of this first phrase is, it's this. Favor and disgrace represent the yin and yang positive. That, the ru is the yin and the yang is the favor. Okay, so it's duality at play. As a matter of fact, it's part of the, you can say, have you guys heard of the 8 winds or influences? Right? Okay, you'll see that in Appendix A. It's basically here. 8 winds. I don't know if you guys can see this. Oops. Right here. Okay. So that's, oops, sorry. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, they're pairs. Okay, the 8 winds. Okay, all right. Okay, they're stuff or not qualities, but traits which fan our passions and prevent one from advancing. Okay, so you have gain or prosperity, loss or decline. So the first two is opposites. Second is the third one's honor or esteem versus disgrace. So this is honor. I mean, so chapter 13 talking about favor and disgrace is something like this. I mean, it includes this too. Favor, could mean this. Okay, disgrace could mean ridicule too. I mean, okay, so these are pairs, right? Acclaim or praise versus censure or ridicule, joy or pleasure. Okay, so these are more specific, okay? All right, so these are just 8, okay? All right, so part of the 8 wins. Okay, so both positive and negative feedback can make one apprehensive. Why would positive feedback make one apprehensive? That's the more non-intuitive aspect. We all know that negative, right? Negative feedback, disgrace, dishonor, humiliation, etc. We all that makes one fearful, right? That makes us alarmed, right? But what about a positive quality, such as favor or honor or stuff like that? Why is that? Why does that also make one fearful or alarmed? Okay, so here it is. Okay, these are the reasons. Both positive and negative are treated as if they are scary things, that they have the power to start. Why? The obvious part is that with negative, we worry that there could be negative consequences, or there's more bad things, or we're on the wrong track, etc. Okay? The non-obvious part is this. Honor and positive feedback seem like good things, right? That we should welcome. In reality, we also worry because we may not deserve the praise. Okay, so it may not be, it could be because of flattery, right? People were flattering you. Okay, so that's also negative, right? Okay, or there's a hidden agenda, right? People doing this, suddenly they praise you, when you know that, you don't, and it's not that you don't deserve it, but that it's not forthcoming. It's not, so there must be a hidden agenda. Or it will raise expectations to somebody, it's going to set me up, right, for something, right, later. Okay, so this has evolved into popular phrases, that in modern usage, okay, receiving praise but feeling apprehensive. That's what this is, right? 受宠若惊, okay? Or hearing praise but feeling apprehensive, 闻宠若惊, or getting praise but feeling apprehensive, 被宠若惊. Okay? All right, so those are. Okay, so another meaning is that this phrase describes that mixture of excitement and nervousness when something positive happens unexpectedly. You're happy, but not quite sure if it's too good to be true, or if there's some kind of hidden agenda, right? So that's another one. Okay, so both favor, that's the external validation, and disgrace, social approval, so positive and negative, affect us to the exact extent of our attachment, how we attach to our egos, to our mindset, etc., etc. Okay? Here's another understanding is this. It's whether we receive honor or disgrace, we're still panic-stricken or alarmed because it's not up to us. We're not the ones that's, giving out the praise or giving out the disgrace, okay? And we don't have a choice, right? It's given to us, okay? So the implication is that the more attached we are to our outcome, the more we will be affected by either positive or negative. That's very important, right? The more attached we are to the outcome, the more we have higher expectations we have, right? So therefore, whether positive or negative feedback, it will affect us more, right? Makes sense? So key point is this: both favor and disgrace is alarming because it's not up to us to give them, nor was it our choice to receive them. So we have no control, right? So that's why it should alarm us. Okay. Now, the second phrase is also his premise. So he's saying the greatest misfortune is the self. Okay. Now he's talking about the human body. I mean, the body, the physical body. Okay. Not I mean, not just ego too. I mean, it includes both. It's really both, okay? So the first phrase, 贵, literally means in the, oops, I don't know how to look this. Anyway, literally it means expensive, 贵, or precious, valuable, noble, or valuable, okay? But that's the modern usage. The ancient usage is, it means the most, the apex, epitome, the peak, the summit, okay, or the zenith, top, okay? The second word means big, vast, okay? So the third word, 还, means adversity, anxiety, disaster, misery, misfortune, peril, suffering, worry, okay? The last word literally means body, okay? So physically, I mean, externally it means the body, but internally it's the ego or the sense of self, okay? So the basic meaning is the greatest misfortune is the physical body. Okay, so that's the first level, okay? Another interpretation is that materialism is a great fortune too, like the self. But this chapter is about the self or ego, not material. Materialism is discussed in the previous chapter. Okay, that's chapter 12. So that's talking about the external side, remember, right? We talk about the colors, the sounds, and the tastes, right? Okay, so a further understanding is that the greatest suffering is because we have a physical body. That's the external aspect. And then a sense of self or ego, that's the internal aspect. So, because we're humans, right? We have a physical body and we also have a sense of self. So that, according to Lao Tzu, is the greatest suffering. All right? So when we're humans, we're suffering. So this is very similar, right? I mean, if you guys remember what Buddha said, right? The Four Noble Truths. What's the first truth? Life is suffering, right? So it's very similar, right? Okay, implication. With a physical body, we have a human nature which gives rise to what? Consciousness, ego, desires, attachment, emotion, pride, self, which in turn causes us to pursue material benefits, goals, etc., and thus creating karma and resulting in suffering, right? That's the, you can say, the human condition, right? That's the way humans are, okay? So the key point is this. Because of the self, or the ego, right? 我相自我, we end up with selfish, materialistic pursuits, which unwittingly makes it easy to create karma and then suffering. That's the greatest misfortune, according to Lao Tzu, okay? It's same as what Buddha would say, right? Same thing. Okay, so we're done with the first two phrases, which is like Lao Tzu. It's the intro. He's laying down his what do you call that? His what's the word? His premise. Okay, he's laying down the premise. Okay, next section. By the way, this chapter has 4 sections. So this is beginning of the second section, which is he is asking. Remember the first statement, first phrase of this chapter was this, right? So he's then reiterating and asking, well, what is meant by favor and disgrace makes one or causes one or seems to be fearful? Okay, so basically that's what he was, he was asking that question because he understood that most people may not understand both sides of the duality. Most people would say, oh yeah, disgrace makes you fearful, of course, right? Anything that's negative, right? But most people still do not understand that positive also will make one fearful or alarmed, etc. Okay? All right, so continue on sex. He's now explaining, answering this question, why either positive and negative, qualities would, make you fearful, okay, or alarmed. So he said, favor is considered high. It's considered above, right? So, and disgrace is low, okay? All right, so we don't need to go through this. Okay, so the basic meaning is this. Positive feedback, like favor, is usually highly desired and sought after. That's what it means by considered to be high, okay, or above. Whereas negative feedback, like disgrace, is strongly disliked and avoided as much as possible. That's why it's considered low, right? Okay? Here's another understanding. Okay. All right. Basically, he said, in general, most people prefer to receive grace, of course, right, from others, to have recognition among peers, to be thought of highly in a profession, etc., etc. While most we prefer not to be disgraced, slandered, humiliated, or insulted, scorned, or ignored, right? I mean, that's what's considered above and what's below, right? Okay, all right. Now, although this Tao Te Ching was written about 2,500 years ago, it's very interesting. It still accurately describes human interactions today, such as we have likes or dislikes, thumbs up, thumbs down, in social media comments, right? Those of you who are who have accounts in Facebook, Twitter, what else? Whole bunch. they always, whatever statement one make. Yeah, you could have people that follow you could give you thumbs up or thumbs down, right? Okay, so you could seek external validation, etc., etc. Okay, so in media posts and comments and posts, or ratings given to restaurants, retailers, social service providers, right? Any of you who go to Yelp, go to Google, right? In restaurants, retailers, so it's, you could give people ratings, okay, etc. And then also product ratings and reviews and websites, Amazon, what else? Amazon, what's the other one? PayPal, all that, right? Okay, all right. So, this is very human, right? That's what human conditions like. Okay, so but the higher understanding is this: our egos crave likes, favors, and praise while avoiding dislikes, disgrace. We attach too much importance to praise and criticism. We attach a lot because we have an ego, right? Especially the more attached we are, the more importance we attach. Okay, so the key point is this: because of our egos, we tend to like favor and dislike disgrace. So we have this duality, right? Like and dislike, right? We like positive things and we dislike negative things. I mean, most people say that's natural. Psychology, human psychology would say that's natural. That's part of, I guess, survival, right? Going back to the, days of evolution, right? Okay, anyway. All right, so he's further explaining why, favor or dishonor, positive, negative traits alarms us. It's this. He says, having it, okay, having it makes one fearful. Losing it makes one fearful. This is called favor, and disgrace makes one fearful. So that's the reason, okay, why both positive traits or feedback and negative feedback causes us, alarm or fear. Because one, it makes us, because we fear losing it, okay, losing the favor, okay, gain and lose, gain and loss, okay, so that's, okay, so means to receive, to have, to gain, okay. Let's see, we don't need to go through this. Okay, let's see. Okay, here. Basic meaning of first phrase is receiving either positive or negative is either apprehensive or worrisome. So either way, there is fear. Okay? The basic, okay, so that's the first phrase right here. Okay, right here. First phrase. Okay? Second phrase is this. Losing positive feedback also makes us nervous because we may think something is wrong, while losing negative feedback may seem like a good thing, but it also could mean we're being ignored or beneath notice, so that nobody cares about you, right? So either way, there's fear or alarm. Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, so gaining positive and negative, and losing positive and negative. Okay, all right. Okay, another understanding. No matter whether it's favor or disgrace, whether we receive it or lose it, we're still very panic-stricken, okay? The higher understanding is, in this material world, we do attach too much importance to phenomena, to forms, to material things, to forms in general. Okay? Implication is this: our focus should not be on the end result, good and bad. Remember, in the beginning, I talked about how much we we attach to things, right? Attach to results in this case, right? Good and bad. We should not be too focused on the end result, okay? Because the more attached we are to that thing, to that end result, and if the more likely we're going to be affected much more by either positive or negative feedback, right? Okay, so instead of focusing mostly on the end result, we should focus on the process itself. So that's not about the destination, but about the journey, right? Okay, so that's the common phrase we hear, right? So it's the journey, not the destination, i.e., it's the process, not the end result. So if we could focus more on the process, doing things right, or doing things properly, right? Properly, efficiently, effectively, etc. The result will take care of itself, right? Okay. All right. So the key point, because of our attachment to the phenomenal world, we care very much, or we put too much emphasis about both receiving or losing either favor or disgrace, which therefore makes us apprehensive and fearful. We crave external validation and we fear losing it. Okay? All right. Okay. So that's the end of section 2. Basically, it's, you can say, Lao Tzu is giving a reason for the first phrase of the first section, the first line of this chapter. Okay? So then now he's going to we're going to go to the next section, section 3, which is analysis of the second phrase of the chapter, which is what is meant by the greatest misfortune is the self. Okay, so he's asking the meaning, what's the meaning of the second line, okay, on page 1. So here it is. The reason I have great misfortune is that I have the self. It's kind of like circular, but okay, and he'll explain why. Okay, where the first phrase, this means I, okay, wu, it's an old usage, okay, it means I, me, us, myself, etc. Okay, let's see, no need to go through this. That's the first. Soi means the reason why, therefore, etc. Wei means because of, to do, okay, this means because of. Okay, so the basic meaning is this. It's to emphasize the first phrase from the second line above, all right? Okay, because it may not be obvious why the sense of self is what gets us into trouble, okay? All right, so another understanding is because we have physical bodies, everything we do is for its consideration. Yeah, think about it, right? So we have to work, right? Because why? We have to survive. We have to put food on the table. We have to have clothes. We have to have housing, etc., etc. So whatever we do, or not I don't say whatever, but most of what we justify our either occupations or our work or whatever we do is mostly to take care of our physical needs, right? Okay, so that's what it is. Okay, so the implication is this. For the consideration of our bodies, we make plans for it, we feed it, we clothe it, we take pleasure for it. All our efforts is mainly expended for the body. That makes sense, right? Okay, so then additional understand is our attachment, therefore, to our bodies and the ego leads us to suffering. Okay, so that's the consequence. All right, but we don't know it. Okay, most people don't know it. Okay, all right. The higher understanding is this: we want to be free of suffering. In order to be free of suffering, we must first be free of attachments, or the egocentric or selfish. So attachments to two aspects, right? The physical body and our ego, okay? The external, internal aspects, okay? So the key point is this. Our attachment to our bodies and egos, here it is the main cause of our suffering. That's the great misfortune, okay? So Buddha first noble truth, right? Life is suffering. Oh, and what's his second truth? Is there's a cause to that suffering. And what's the cause of the suffering? It's because of our attachment to our bodies and egos, right? So that's the second noble truth here. I should write it down, but that's okay. Okay, so that's the second noble truth, okay? All right, talks about the cause of suffering, right? Okay. Okay, so further analysis or explanation, okay, on the third section. If I have no self, then what misfortune would I have, right? Okay, so Wusa means have no, without physical body, or selfless, okay? All right, so the basic meaning is this. By not being attached to my body and without ego, then you'll have no suffering, right? Okay. Okay. Actually, okay. There's one word that Buddha would use to, maybe I should have mentioned this when I was talking about the 8 winds, but that we use to resolve this attachment, okay? What's the opposite of attachment? That's the clue. Remember the 4 immeasurable minds, right? That's the you can say innate trait or virtues, you can call them virtues, of our Buddha nature, right? One of them is what? Relinquishment. So if we have relinquishment, then we will not be attached to our body and our ego, okay? All right, but anyway, that's okay. So another understanding is this. For most of us, we're born in this world with physical bodies due to our karmas and virtues. Now people say, well, if I'm suffering, how can I have virtues and I'm suffering? Well, here it's not. This is not. We should not use that standard. Rather, we should look at it from the causality aspect. Okay, which the next sentence talks about, which is this. Because if we have no virtues, we will not be born as humans. You know that? So that's something. So even the poorest or the most pitiful humans, I'm talking about humans now, still have some virtues. Because without any virtues, we will not reincarnate or be born as humans. And then what will we, if we have no virtues, let's say we had zero virtues, what will we be born as? Well, there's the lower half of the 3, it's called the 3 evil paths, okay? Which is, if we have no virtues, we'll either reincarnate as animals, hungry ghosts, or we'll end up in the underworld, okay? So that's something to remind ourselves, okay? So because we have some virtues, okay, we are qualified to be born as animals. As humans, okay, and not as animals, hungry ghosts, or in the underworld. Get it? Now, the more virtues we have, okay, not only can you be born as humans, but you can also be born as, let's see here. Anybody know what the 6? Oops, right up here. Okay? You could be born as not only humans, but we could be asuras too, okay? Asuras have, most people think asuras are evil. Now, it's different type. I wouldn't say it's evil. It's just that they have negative traits. I mean, obviously, if you're in the underworld, it's definitely negative. Or hungry ghosts, it's definitely bad, okay? It's just that asuras actually have a lot of we call merits, you know that? Okay, they don't have that much virtues. Why? Because they were not able to give up certain negative traits, or negative characters, such as what? Anger, or lust, or what do you call that? Greed. Okay, so even though they have merits, but if you still cannot give, still have some anger, greed, lust, etc. Okay, you'll end up being this. Okay, you won't end up as an animal because you have enough merits and virtue. Then the highest, well, in terms of the sixth path, is the devas. That means they have a lot of merits and virtues. Okay, so that's what it means. So the top three, the upper three, and this is the bottom three. So the top three means that you tend to have more virtues / merits than negatives. Let's say it's over 50%. Example, or I'm just using, okay, so maybe 50% here. If you have 50%, virtues, positive versus negative, you could be here. If you have a little bit more, maybe 60, 70, you'll be here. If you have like 80, 90, you could be here. Okay? All right, so that's what it means. That's one way to look at it. Okay? So implication is this. As long as we have bodies, we need to borrow the false, which is the physical body, okay, to cultivate the true, okay, i.e. the Buddha nature. Now, why is the physical body false? Because it's not everlasting. It's subject to frailties of our human bodies, i.e., once we have a physical body, we can end up with attachment, right, to our six senses, etc., etc. Okay, so therefore, plus it's not everlasting, right? Okay, so it's not the true form, which we will talk about in chapter 14. Okay, all right. So the key point: as long as we're able to cultivate our Buddha nature, let our Buddha nature become the master of our thoughts, words, and actions, we will be selfless. Therefore, without attachments to our bodies, we will not create karmas. Then we will have no suffering and misfortune. Okay. Now this it's kind of a very brief, high-level summary, actually, of, you can say, the Fourth Noble Truth. You guys know what the Fourth Noble Truth is? Which is what? There is a path, a way, right, to end the suffering. Get it? So that's what this is really, about. All right? So that's, pretty much summarizes. Okay, it's a summarization. Okay, all right. Next. This is still section. Oh, okay, so we're done with section 3, right? This is section 3. So he's answering basically, or doing the analysis of why, of the second phrase of why is the self is the greatest misfortune. Okay, so now I come to the conclusion. Hey, I'm ahead of schedule, right, Tai? What time is it? 2 o'clock. Okay, all right, so now we're at the conclusion. So the one who values the self as the world can be given the world. Okay, so that's what it means. Gui means to value, right? Okay, so in this case, this is no longer the ancient usage. I mean, ancient use, it also means to value too, obviously. Okay, so it's to value, it could be verb or adjective. Okay, let's see, we don't need to explain all this. That means the person, the self, the person, because of, okay, here's what we do. The last two words here, or this two words here, is literally means all under heaven, or the entire world, the third word of the second phrase, that's here, okay, it literally means to deliver, to mail, to post, to convey, or to send, transfer, to entrust, or to depend on. So in this context, in this phrase, it means to this, to entrust, all right? Okay, so the basic meaning of the first phrase, that's here, right? That's this phrase, is those who can transition from valuing themselves, i.e., from their self-centric or ego-centric self, to value the world. Okay, that's what it means right up here. Okay. Then another meaning of the first phrase is to go from being preoccupied with just our self-interest to becoming more selfless. Okay, less egocentric, less self-centric, more conscientious and concerned about the welfare of others. Okay, so that means it's much more inclusive. You are less selfish. Okay, that's basically what it means. Or, more relinquish. You're relinquishing your notion of self or the ego. Okay, the deeper understanding is this. Those who do not think too highly of themselves, but think highly of the entire society, all humanity, and all sentient beings. Okay, that's what this first phrase means. Okay, first phrase. All right, so one who values the self as the world. Okay. Okay. Then the basic meaning of the second phrase is those who have transcended their egocentric thinking are the ones who can serve the world selflessly. Okay, that's what the second phrase, can be given the world, means. Okay. Another understanding of the second phrase is this: to be given the world means to receive stewardship of the world. That is the responsibility to care or govern or to lead the world. Okay. Further understanding: conversely, those who seek to enrich themselves, or overly selfish, etc., should not be given the power of stewardship over the world. Okay, so that's also the converse is true. Okay, that's on a broad level. These, about being, leading the world, governing the world, etc., or society. On a more personal level, it's basically to transcend to a level where our focus is on something greater than yourself. So you're saying more like, for the greater good, right? Things like, you volunteer, you help out, right? You help others who are in need. Not necessarily, you're leading society or a government or the world, but you're just doing your little bit, in terms of helping others. Okay? So that's an example. Okay? So the key point is this. By being selfless, i.e., not thinking of only for one's gain or loss, advantages or disadvantages, and extending our concern to the entire society, to all humanity, and to all sentient beings, we become worthy of true mastery over the world. I didn't put it down here, but we should say remember the Great Learning, right? Chapter 1. Not chapter 1. It is chapter 1. I forgot what section, but it's called the eight objectives, 八条目, right? That's similar to that. Okay, this is similar. Okay, this is very similar to that. All right. Now we're in the last sentence or phrase. Okay, then the conclusion. One who loves the self as the world can be entrusted with the world. Okay, so the first sentence here is one who values the self or as the world, whereas the second one is one who loves the self as the world. Okay, so this is a further, a different perspective, but it's basically the same thing. Okay, that's the same end result. This is just a little bit stronger because when you say, to value something or to cherish versus to love. Okay, love in this case is not the physical love. Yeah, it means it's the cherish, it's the treasure. It's more altruistic love. Okay, unselfish love. You can call it that way. All right. So it's a little bit more. How can I say, deeper than the first phrase of this conclusion, which is to value. You understand? Okay? All right. So this allows us just putting up, saying these two qualities, they go kind of like, they follow each other. In other words, that cherishing or that self-altruistic love can, develop from this valuing yourself. Okay, valuing yourself as the rest of the world. Okay, all right. So, okay, the second phrase, the third word, the second phrase, just means tuo, right? Tuo means to be entrusted with. Similar to this word ji, right? Ji, where is it? Ji, right here. Okay, all right. Similar, well, in the sense of using this definition. Okay, to entrust. Okay, all right. Where are we? Yeah. Okay, so the basic meaning of the first phrase is those who transcend from loving themselves to loving the entire world. That's what this is right here. Okay, so it's like I said, it's more like an altruistic love, from a selfish love or narcissism, right, to more altruism, right? Okay, okay. So deeper meaning of first phrase is by elevating our spiritual cultivation, can one be able to go from loving oneself, that mind of cherishing one's body, to loving the entire world, which is society, humanity, and sentient beings. Okay, so so that type of love is not just a physical aspect, obviously, right? But it's also the mental side too. But we okay, it's your mind. Okay, that mind. Okay, all right. Okay, so additional understanding. We must go beyond looking after ourselves in order to attain greatness. Okay, that's so it's non-selfish. It's once again selfless. Okay, all right. So the basic understanding of second phrase is this: grand scale, at a grand level, it's to be entrusted with the world, means to rule, to govern. Okay, lead the world. On a personal scale, it's to take charge of our life and destiny. Okay, we can take charge of our life and destiny. Okay. So the implication is this: by manifesting from our inner hearts, that is our Buddha nature, okay, we can be worthy of leading society, leading humanity, and the entire world. By transformation oneself, from loving oneself to transcending to a love of something greater than oneself, right? Okay, so from a narcissism or selfish love to a what? Altruistic love, okay, or benevolence for others, okay? So that's what this means, okay, this last phrase. Okay, so the key point is this. One who cherishes the entire society, who loves all humanity, and who treasures all sentient beings more than themselves, are, worthy or can rule the world, are worthy to lead or govern the world. That is the transformation to Tao. That's what Tao, that Lao Tzu, so far, I mean, you get glimpses of it in some previous chapters, but, going forward, especially in the 2/3 half of the Tao Te Ching, they'll talk about what we call the virtue aspect of the Tao, the Tao Te Ching, right? The virtue, which is how we can help the world or help others, okay? Or how do you manifest our virtues, okay? That's the transformation, okay, to the Tao, okay? All right? So that's, you can say the Tao, in the Tao Te Ching, right, talks about the the inner aspect, which is you can say the principal aspect, okay? The inner. But then once we cultivate it or we understand this Tao well enough, we naturally, it's not forced, okay? It's not coerced. Naturally, you will display it or manifest it and as what? A virtue, okay? And so that's the transformation to Tao. That's it. Okay, here's the 8 winds. Okay, we know about this. Okay, so how do you overcome the 8 winds? One word: relinquishment. Okay, so it's easy to say, but it's obviously not that easy to achieve. Okay, but that's part of the Buddhist teaching is if you have relinquishment, you can get rid of all this. Okay, or at least minimize their effect on you, okay? Or, so that we can maintain our path of cultivation of enlightenment. Okay, so basically, as a wrap up. So this chapter is relatively short, but Lao Tzu was focusing more on these internal aspects, which is these 8 winds or influences or passions, okay, that affect us internally. I mean, it affects us externally too, but mainly it's how we perceive, right? How we perceive, how our minds perceive these qualities is what, what affects us the most, right? Okay. So, chapter 12 last week talked about more the external influences, right? The colors of the world, the sounds of the world, the tastes of the world. And now he's talking that and how it affects us. And now he was talking about more these internal influences on us. Okay. And these 2 chapters, chapter 12 and 13, lays the groundwork, if you will, for next week. I don't know if it's next week, but for next chapter, 14, which is about I would say mystical or metaphysical aspects, okay, of the Tao. All right. So it's called Dao Ji. That's hard to translate, but one translation is the Tao axiom, or the postulate of Tao. Okay, so it's a much more you can say metaphysical or abstract. Okay, so just letting you guys know that next chapter is I wouldn't say it's a total opposite, but it's much more abstract. It talks about the Tao cosmology. Okay, whereas this chapter and chapter 12 previously is much more, I won't say mundane, but it's something that all of us have experienced, right? So anyway, okay, so that's pretty it. This is pretty straightforward. So I just finished right here. Any questions?
Lecture Kai. This is Mark. One comment here. Okay, I'm talking about the one area we're going to face when we propagate Tao. During our cultivation and propagation period, sometimes we might receive praise from, that is their favor from people, what people say about us. Sometimes we might receive the criticism. People criticize us. But when we receive the praise, we should be very humble. Become arrogant, very important. Second thing is, when we receive the criticize or people say negative things about us, we need to quickly reflect ourselves immediately.
Yes.
Do we have those problems or not? If we do, we need to repent and then correct it. But if we don't, then we have to let go. Don't take too personal. So those kind of little things we need to learn how to deal with daily life. It's because of Tao. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's very, very true. So, that's why humility, or that's why, we don't have the self, right? The ego self, right? The ego part, right? So why you have no egos, right? That's very important, okay? Because of our attachment to our bodies and egos. That's the main cause. So because we have too attached our egos, we think too highly of ourselves, right? I know more than you, or I'm richer than you, or I'm more powerful, or I'm more famous, whatever. So it's once we have that type of thought, it's very easy, right? When people criticize, there's a phrase, it's an idiom. It says 树大招风, right? Have you guys heard of that term?
Yeah.
树大招风. The literal meaning is that a big tree, 树大 means big tree, tall tree. 招 means to catch, or to catch the wind. Catches the wind more. Get it? So if you look at today's world, the higher position you have, the more famous you are, the rich you are, or the more powerful you are, you stick out, right? So therefore, you're going to catch more criticism or even praise. I mean, it could be positive or negative. Make sense? Okay, so we have to be very careful. So yes, as style cultivators, we must be mindful that all those qualities such as humbleness. And I think some previous chapter, the chapter, I think chapter 7, yes, 无私, selfless. He talked about that. Okay, 无私, selfless, very very important, right? He talked about having no self, right? Not you can say being humble. Okay, okay, so you have to be mindful of these qualities.
Yeah, when people criticize on us, don't feel bad about things like that. Just take the opportunity to reflect ourselves.
Reflect, yes.
Yeah, and then once we reflect ourselves, it's going to make us a different person, a better person. If we have those problems, we will improve. If we don't have it, we will let go. So we will get better and better as cultivators. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really part of, you can say, the 4 courses of cultivation or inner and outer cultivation, that we have to learn how to transform, either negative things into positive things, i.e. criticism can transform into a constructive criticism, if possible, or just let it go. But self-reflection is what the 4 books would say. I think it's in the Analects and mention that about, when we have to, when we face a phase of adversity or, not just criticism, but adversity in general, we should self-reflect and ask ourselves, first, if it's our fault, right? Or if it's due to us first, right? So we don't, point fingers, right? Or blame heaven and blame earth, blame everybody else but yourself, right? Okay, so it's always self-reflect or looking inside yourself, asking yourself first, right?
Electric Guy, there's this question there that says, do indigenous people have a deeper sense of tribe and worldliness? Can they be given the world or stewardship?
I think if you say that the indigenous people have virtues, they tend to be less selfish, right, or more selfless, right? Then sure, they qualify, to be more, leaders, all right? So a sense of community, right? So maybe that's what the questioner was alluding to, that a lot of native people don't have this sense of private ownership or private, property, that this notion of me, this is mine, right? And not everybody's, right? So yeah, maybe the old, ancient tribes or the, of the past have a more sense of communal type of society, right? Then that's different than today, where everything is more me, I. This is mine, right? Not yours, right? Stuff like that. So yes, no, but it's more. It's not just leadership. Like I said previously, right? That it's not. There are 2 scopes, right? There's the grand scale, and then there's the personal scale, right? So it's not just on the, grand level, okay? It's also internal, yourself, all right?